Forces of Chaos. The followers of the Chaos Gods are myriad in both number and nature. Endless hordes of crazed cultists, grotesque mutants, and cackling demons rush into battle alongside the hate-filled and indefatigable warriors of the Heretic Astartes and the towering war engines of the Chaos Knight households, rising up to overthrow the Emperor's rule or bursting into reality from warp-based bastions. They live only to do the Dark God's bidding and to see the galaxy burn. The worshippers of the ruinous powers are turncoats and traitors, the desperate, the damned, and the hopelessly insane. Some are motivated by their hatred of those they believe have failed them, or whose weak rule they despise and resent. Others seek a chance to change their fortunes, making dark pacts with ineffable entities and trading away their souls in exchange for a better hand than life has dealt them. They are unified by their propensity for anarchy and destruction, and in the main, their vehement hatred of the Imperium. But in many ways, they are disparate indeed. The worshippers of chaos are led by mighty champions, individuals who have long served the dark gods and have been utterly twisted by the experience. On occasion, the goals of one champion might align with another long enough to see their forces combined into a unified and terrifying host. Once a planet has been razed, plundered, and its populace offered up for sacrifice, these alliances often crumble. Only the greatest and most powerful of Chaos warlords are able to hold such alliances together through a mixture of fear and manipulation, to bloodily defeat the challengers from within their own ranks, and to garner the mercurial support of warp entities from beyond the veil. Such so-called allies care nothing for loyalty or honor, but they can be compelled to offer aid in return for the correct sacrifices. Combining the awesome military strength of the Adeptus Astartes with the foul power of the Chaos Gods, the Heretic Astartes are amongst the most dangerous of threats to the Emperor's realm. Some have fought against the Emperor since the dark days of the Horus heresy, the dreaded Daemon Primarchs first among them. Others are more recent turncoats. Wherever the Chaos Space Marines strike, death and ruin follow, as these most terrible of warriors slay, enslave, and plunder. Many Heretic Astartes worship a particular Chaos God, with some exhibiting the kind of perverted blessings that suggest favor from their deity in return. The Death Guard, traitor legion of the Daemon Primarch Mortarion, have thrown in their lot with Nurgle, each of their number a rotting host to unnatural maladies said to be concoctions of the plague god himself. When they march to war, their forces are accompanied by dense clouds of fat, disease-ridden flies, and thick clouds of toxic miasma. The Thousand Sons, by comparison, are followers of Tzeentch. Their many sorcerers infused with vast empiric power, yielded from intense study of forbidden and esoteric texts. Their armor gleaming with eldritch energy, Thousand Sun hosts march in perfectly formed ranks, bolters firing as their empowered champions unleash deadly blasts of warp fire upon the enemy. The most infamous of the Heretic Astartes are the Black Legion, who are led by Abaddon the Despoiler, the War Master of Chaos, and Gene son of Horus himself. Bound together and given purpose by their hatred of the Imperium and the fearsome will of their master, the Black Legion serve no single Chaos God. Instead, they offer worship to the Pantheon in whatever way best serves their own egotistical aspirations. They possess the greatest number of any single Chaos Space Marine force, for they recruit not only through their own gene seeds and twisted novitiates, but also from amongst the disillusioned and disaffected of other traitor legions. The Black Legion and Abaddon, most of all, are the poisoned heart, whose thunderous beat keeps the long war alive. The War Master aims to see the throne world burn, and he will stop at nothing to achieve this. Once noble and honorable champions of the Imperium, the Chaos Knights have since been horribly corrupted by the ruinous powers. These bipedal engines of destruction tower over the battlefield. Each is piloted from within by a single fallen noble, who integrates with their mighty knight suit through biomechanical uplinks and parasitic neuroempath relays, allowing them to move and fight as though their knight was a monstrous extension of their own mutated limbs. Even a single Chaos Knight is a deadly war engine that boasts the firepower and close-quarters savagery to devastate regiments of the foe. When they march out en masse, entire worlds are razed. Amongst the most dangerous of all the Dark God's followers are the Daemons of Chaos. Formed of the very stuff of the warp, their numberless hordes seek nothing but to turn the material realm into an endless maelstrom of torture and madness. Taking countless horrifying forms, they leap, charge, writhe, and slaver across the battlefield, unfazed by incoming fire and hungry for mortal souls. The Daemons of Chaos are as insidious and cunning as they are ferocious. Many tear open the minds of psychers as gateways into real space, or else tempt the weak-willed into compliance. Those who are seduced by the power of the warp often wrongly believe that they are the ones with the upper hand in any bargain struck. They discover far too late what fools they have been, and what terrible fate they will suffer for falling to a daemon's silken promises. For 10,000 years, the worshippers of the dark gods have sought to conquer real space. Since the opening of the Great Rift, they are closer to this goal than ever before. Cults rise in greater numbers as more worlds are thrown into turmoil and more systems stormed and sacked. Each cultist, Chaos Knight, Demon, and Chaos Space Marine works to bring about the downfall of humanity, even as they fight to overthrow their rival sects, all in the service of conspiring powers bent on consuming the entire galaxy. Despite the ghastly peril facing all of reality, the people of the Imperium were kept largely ignorant of the threat of chaos in all but the most abstract terms. It must be so, for with knowledge of its true nature comes madness, terror, and mutation that, if left unchecked, would bring the Imperium to its knees. The Inquisition and other secret forces work tirelessly and ruthlessly to maintain mankind's shield of ignorance, with no price considered too high and no butcher's bill too bloody. In this way, the insidious corruption of chaos works to undermine the Imperium's strength by influencing the actions of its most faithful defenders. For the Inquisition thinks nothing of mind-wiping whole regiments or euthanizing entire worlds to maintain its most dire of secrets. Heretic Astartes, they are humanity's fallen heroes and the Imperium's scourge, who have sold their souls for the promise of power gifted from the dark gods. They are the Heretic Astartes, the Chaos Space Marines. From the Eye of Terror, the Maelstrom, the Great Rift, and 1,000 other strongholds, they strike at the realm they were once sworn to defend. Driven by hate, bitterness, and bloodlust. Blessed with the Emperor's gifts of preternatural strength, speed, and endurance, and made even deadlier by superlative armor and devastating weaponry, the Heretic Astartes are incredibly powerful warriors. Being Space Marines, they are dangerous enough, but with the blessings of the Chaos Gods, secured through dark and unholy pacts, they are rendered even more powerful by fearsome mutations and supernatural powers. Openly rejecting the righteous discipline of the Imperium, the heretic Astartes are as varied in their approach to battle as they are in their horrific appearance. The heretic Astartes often bear a superficial resemblance to their imperial counterparts. Though distorted, many of their weapons follow a similar pattern to those wielded by the Loyalists, be it bolt guns, chain swords, missile launchers, crack grenades, plasma pistols, and the like. They even field mainline battle tanks and armored transports based off the redoubtable holds of the Rhino APC or the formidable Land Raider. In truth, however, the heretic Astartes and the Adeptus Astartes are little alike. The longer a Chaos Space Marine spends following the Dark Gods, the more corrupted they become. Horns and spikes protrude from their armor, and they may even be gifted with heinous mutations by their new patrons, whether it be whip-like tentacles, additional limbs, or other stranger alterations. Their flesh and armor often fuse into one, making them and their plate a single horrific organism, with their warpsmiths and dark mechanicum allies channeling the unfettered energies of chaos into the creation of heinous war machines. Heretic Astartes hosts are joined by throngs of daemon engines. These abominations combine armored brass and iron chassis and hellish weapon systems with a bound demonic essence that animates the engine and drives it into battle. The answer as to what motivates psycho-indoctrinated, superhuman warriors of the Imperium to rebel against the empire they were bred to serve is as varied and complex as each individual space marine. There are those who seek to throw off the chains of servitude and turn their might to their own advancement. Others claim to have been betrayed by the Imperium, or else are driven mad by exposure to forbidden secrets and fell powers. Some walk yet stranger paths to glory or damnation, raiding, pillaging, and slaughtering as they go. Most appear to do this to satisfy their cruel desire for slaughter and mayhem. Their inhuman abilities and potent war gear making them a threat to even the most formidable of foes. They may believe themselves to be their own masters, choosing to give their worship to the dark gods in preference to the emperor. The truth is, however, that the majority of renegade space marines have simply exchanged one distant and uncaring master for another. Those who truly excel may be rewarded with dark blessings, even immortal daemonhood. But for many, there is only brutality, hardship, and an eventual grisly end. Just as there are hundreds upon hundreds of loyalist Space Marine chapters, so there are vast numbers of factions within the ranks of the heretic Astartes. 10,000 years on from the Horus heresy, there are those traitor legions still clinging to cohesion, still fighting the long war. Alongside them fight warbands of renegades, turncoats, and lunatics who have fallen into chaos worship in the millennia since. The dark gods' insidious tendrils quest constantly for the hearts and souls of the Emperor's greatest warriors. Wherever a chink is found, wherever spiritual rot takes hold, there is formed a new warband of the heretic Astartes, sworn to revenge themselves upon the Imperium that created them. Black Legion. The Black Legion is a name synonymous with evil, living reminders of the Imperium's greatest catastrophe and its greatest threat. The Black Legion's warriors are the bringers of death and ruin, with souls as dark as their name. Abaddon the Despoiler leads them in their relentless campaign against the Imperium, and under him, they will stop at nothing to achieve their goal. Once named the Sons of Horus, the Black Legion's journey to preeminence amongst the traitor legions was hard-fought. Only Abaddon had the strength to break the cycle of internecine warfare between the traitors and to forge the Black Legion into a notorious host that continues to ravage the Imperium 10,000 years later. More numerous by far than any other faction of heretic Astartes, the Black Legion is made up of countless warbands, consisting of turncoat space marines who have bent the knee to Abaddon. The only requirement for one who wishes to join this brotherhood is a hatred of the Emperor. Since the Horus heresy, warriors from other traitor legions and renegades of all stripes have donned the black and gold of Abaddon's hosts. While many worship the Chaos Pantheon entire, others dedicate themselves to a single god. Over the millennia, many of the old Sons of Horus have done this, as have all manner of renegades. Equally, those dedicated to and seemingly chosen by a single god, the Death Guard, the World Eaters, Emperor's Children, and Thousand Sons, have, on occasion, abandoned their own legions to join Abaddon's own. The Despoiler cares not to which god or gods any of his followers give offering, nor does he care, for the most part, where they raid, pillage, and kill. His warlords are extended both Abaddon's trust and the high expectations that come with it. The Despoiler cares only that they answer his call when he summons them, and follow his orders when he gives them. Failure in this is unwise. Abaddon has had long millennia in which to dream up suitable punishments for those who let him down. In battle, the Black Legion's fighting style is as varied as the warbands involved, but in the firm grasp of Abaddon's command, the disparate heretic Astartes fight as one. Imperial observers with rare access to secret archives see ruthlessly efficient combat patterns of swift, decisive strikes that overwhelm the enemy, followed by Terminator attacks that break the foe's back, tactics not dissimilar to those used by the Sons of Horus of old, the traitor legions. 10,000 years ago, at the height of the Great Crusade, the War Master Horus turned against the Emperor. Fully half the Space Marine legions followed his path of corruption and heresy, and in the 41st millennium, these legions continue unrelentingly to fight their long war. Once, the names of those now known as the traitor legions were uttered throughout the Imperium with respect and admiration. No longer. The cunning and duplicitous Alpha Legion, the zealous fanatics of the World-Bearers, the grim siege masters of the Iron Warriors, the terror troops of the Night Lords, the potent psychers of the Thousand Sons, the relentless and indomitable Death Guard, the ferocious World Eaters, the magnificent and perfectionist Emperor's Children, and the audacious Sons of Horus were the Space Marine legions that turned against the Emperor at the end of the Great Crusade. Now they are amongst mankind's most dangerous and feared enemies. Those that escaped the siege of Terra and the scouring that followed scattered across the galaxy, with many fleeing to the warp rift known as the Eye of Terror. For years, they warred amongst themselves, for after treachery has been committed once, it is easier to commit again. They vie for territory, slaves, and supplies. Immersed in the unnatural currents of the warp, these traitors fractured and mutated. Their lifespans unnaturally extended, so that many who besieged the Emperor's palace still fight against his waning Imperium 10 millennia later. Thousands of years of constant warfare, rivalries, and jealousies have broken once unified legions into splintered warbands led by champions who rule through might and cunning. The bitterness of defeat has festered in their hearts throughout the years, and combatants once motivated by duty now find themselves consumed by hate. While setting the Imperium aflame is no little reward, those following the Chaos Gods often aspire to even greater ends. For those who glorify their dark patrons through heinous rituals, mass slaughter, and the desecration of sacred sites, there's a chance that they will be granted daemonhood by their masters, gaining vast power and immortality. To walk the path to glory is enormously dangerous, for the gods are fickle, cruel, and indifferent to the plights of mortals. The champion, who puts an entire world's population to the sword, might have his arms warped into bladed weapons, or be gifted with a brass collar protecting him from psychic powers. Another champion might open a huge warp rift that enables legions of demonic horrors to spill into reality and turn a world into a twisted nightmare, for which the gods might reward him with incredible knowledge and wisdom, or a number of semi-autonomous tentacles. He might then turn a highly militarized fortress world into a den of hedonism and torturous ecstasy, in the hopes of being blessed with ways to deepen every sensation, and instead have his eyes rendered sightless and his ears made incapable of hearing. The gods are as capricious as they are ineffable. Some champions may labor all their unnaturally long lives and never once receive a Chaos God's boon. Others might catch the regard of their patron, only to be showered with so many unnatural blessings that their bodies mutate out of control, their minds snap, and they devolve into hideous chaos spawn. For all the lofty goals of daemonhood and the wreaking of vengeance, many amongst the traitor legions fight chiefly for material gain. A war that has lasted for thousands of years cannot be sustained by hate alone, and what cannot be fashioned through slave labor must be stolen by the heretic Astartes in raids. Their gore-encrusted weapons and vessels are relics from the Age of Darkness, yet they have been repaired and made serviceable many times over, and modified with material ripped from the dead hands of imperial servants, or the hulks of devastated loyalist ships. In the era Embodiments, the traitor legions strike from their warped bastions and armadas at the weakened Imperium with a vigor and audacity not seen for millennia. Recorded sightings have not necessarily increased, but that is only because so many worlds have fallen silent beneath their blades before being able to send word. It is feared by many in the Imperium's highest echelons that what information they have barely scratches at the surface of what the traitor legions have achieved. Cults bearing the three-headed hydra of the Alpha Legion are becoming frighteningly common, and terrified calls for aid scream from the worlds engulfed in complete darkness by the Night Lords. The Iron Warriors have constructed massive labyrinthian bastions on fallen imperial worlds, while what scattered bands of world leaders remain butcher with wild abandon, leaving mountains of skulls in their wakes. Indomitus Crusade battle groups have discovered systems captured by the Emperor's children that have descended into pits of twisted hedonism, while sightings of soldiers clad in the spiked deep crimson armor of the Word-bearers are inevitably followed by mass demonic incursions and the raising of dread Noctilith crowns. It is nigh impossible for the servants of the Emperor to contain every heinous depravity, blasphemous assault, and blood-chilling atrocity. The traitor legion's terrifying success has provided them with immense bounties of supplies and slaves with which to further their evil cause, even before the boons and rewards bestowed upon them by their malefic deities are counted. Every victory brings them closer to seeing the throne world in flames and the devastation promised by the Horus heresy brought at last to gruesome fruition. Renegades. Not all heretic Astartes can trace their history back to the Horus heresy. Over 10,000 years, many more Space Marines have fallen from the Emperor's light. Driven by bitterness, greed, or lust for power, these traitors now fight against the Imperium they once served. Despite years of psycho-indoctrination, hypno-conditioning, arduous training, incredible mental robustness, and strength of character, not even Space Marines of the Adeptus Astartes are completely immune to human weakness. They, too, can fall to the subtle temptations of the Chaos Gods. Though the Administratum would never openly admit such a thing, over the course of its long history, individual Space Marines, squads, and even entire chapters have turned renegade in alarming numbers. There are many reasons for this heretical phenomena, with each new band of renegades evidencing their own weaknesses or buried desires. Some are simply power-hungry and chafe against the shackles placed upon them by the Imperium's labyrinthian rules and bureaucracy. Others grow disillusioned, holding too tightly to a sense of entitlement and looking with scorn upon the human cattle they are told it is their purpose to protect. Some are exiled in dishonor, cast aside in the wake of tragedy, heresy, or rampant politicking. These Space Marines may even be preemptively attacked, driving the survivors into a life of piracy as they are forced to flee the Imperium that betrayed them. All renegades are reavers of a kind, raiding, pillaging, and murdering in their constant battle to survive, secure new territories, and defend their strongholds. On those rare devastating occasions where a whole chapter turns traitor, entire systems can swiftly collapse, assailed by the deadliest warriors in the galaxy, in full strength and without restraint. Such merciless assaults leave worlds stripped of material, their populations enslaved or massacred, and vast fortifications erected on their surface to honor the dark gods. Many renegades dwell in the Eye of Terror, following in the footsteps of the traitor legions before them. Many more operate from hidden bases in asteroid fields, from vast space hulks that drift through the void without course, or as nomads aboard fleets or single ships. No matter what caused them to turn, all Space Marine renegades eventually fall to chaos, by accident or by design. Free from the bounds of imperial doctrine, some indulge their desires for the sake of aggrandizement, glory, or greed. Others, close to extinction or on the brink of catastrophic defeat, hand their souls over to the dark gods in exchange for the smallest chance of survival. The Crimson Slaughter, the Purge, the Red Corsairs, the Cleaved, the Scourged, and many more are renegade warbands whose names strike fear into the heart of imperial rulers. For the Inquisition and the Imperium's high command, they are a stark reminder of the innate risks that Space Marines pose and how humanity's greatest asset can swiftly become its greatest danger. Despite the obvious need for the Adeptus Astartes in defense of the Imperium, they too are susceptible to heresy and should be closely observed without complacency. The mere existence of such renegade warbands stirs deep hatred within the loyalist Adeptus Astartes. Not only do they despise their traitor brethren for their heretical crimes, but also for the fact that they dishonor all that it means to be a Space Marine, casting doubt upon the loyalties of those who remain true. Wars between loyalist and renegade Space Marines escalate rapidly, enveloping entire subsectors in terrible, all-consuming conflict. Many renegades relish these wars for the opportunity to harvest gene seed and equipment. After all, Though they combine the martial might of the Adeptus Astartes with the dark and unnatural blessings of the Chaos Gods, renegade warbands rarely boast any but the most rudimentary supply chains. Most are forced to survive by cannibalizing the war gear and even the biological components of loyalist warriors, or else by preying upon other, less powerful renegade bands. No one, save perhaps the Emperor, knows just how many Space Marines have turned renegade over the millennia. Even one loyal warrior falling in this fashion is too many. As each new renegade warband joins the long war on the side of the Dark Gods, so they take with them yet more of the Imperium's military might, now turned to the perverse power of tearing down humanity's realm one world at a time. In the tumult of havoc that has raged across the Imperium since the Great Rift's emergence, raids of such a nature have become frighteningly common. Renegades seize every opportunity to capitalize upon the confusion, hardships, and panic of isolated Imperial forces and worlds. The Imperium's armies are overstretched and overwhelmed on multiple fronts, making too many worlds easy prey for Chaos renegades, who are well learned in the art of plundering, raving, and raiding. Death Guard. The Death Guard, one of the original traitor legions who turned against the Emperor and the Horus heresy, are favored by Nurgle over all others in his service. Led by the demon Primarch Mortarion, their fleets launch from the Plague Planet to ravage the worlds of the Imperium. To face the Death Guard in battle is to fight that which repulses, cripples with nausea, and loosen bowels with fear. Their hulking Plague Marines are clad in the hues of their patron deity, displaying the panoply of unbridled filth and the heraldry of contagious disease. Coils of foul-smelling entrails burst forth from the cracks in their armor, and some are gifted with writhing tentacles in place of their limbs, covered in hungry suckers and wicked claws that seem to have a malevolent sentience of their own. Accompanying their every step wafts a horrendous aroma, a vomit-inducing combination of diseased flesh, noxious fumes, corpse gas, and acid-decayed metal emanating from every inch of their bodies and billowing from corroded power packs and purpose-built vats. Upon sight of the Death Guard's inexorable march, their enemies unleash punishing volumes of fire, desperate to bring down Mortarion's sons. Yet the Death Guard are implacable warriors, favored with unnatural, diseased resilience. They have been rendered immune to pain by Nurgle's blessings, and jovially weather volleys of fire that would destroy lesser armies. In return, the Death Guard ply their infamous close-range fighting skills. Salvos of bolt rounds are combined with noxious streams of toxic slime, or barrages of armor-piercing shells that unleash corrosive iron blight within the hulls of armored vehicles. Whether battling street to street, plowing through trench networks, or marching unstoppably through suppurating swamps, the Death Guard are unstoppable once they close with their foes. Bubo-covered cultists and deathless poxwalkers add to the traitors' ranks, eager to kill and infect. Footed bloat drones hover overhead to drench the foe in toxic slime or hunt enemy armor with hails of corrosive shot. Plague-burst crawlers launch barrages of spore-spewing shells as they smash aside enemy defenses with their ram blades. Mephitic blight haulers harry enemy tanks with multi-meltas and missile launchers as their gaping maws of razor-shark teeth snap and drool in hunger. Combined, Death Guard forces grind their foes down into virulent sludge, ripe for molding in Grandfather Nurgle's hands. Thousand Sons, clad in ornate armor of rich lapis lazuli and purest gold, the Thousand Sons were one of the Emperor's original legions, but are now enthralled to Tzeentch, the Changer of Ways. Led by both their demon primarch, Magnus the Red, and by sorcerers drunk on arcane power, the Thousand Sons seek to bring about the Imperium's lasting destruction. When the Thousand Sons make war, it is to claim lost knowledge, to complete arcane rituals, and to revenge themselves on their hated imperial foes. Each action, however huge in scale to the outside observer, is but one component in a complex plan, potentially eons in the making. Few can even begin to divine the patterns established, so labyrinthian and circuitous are they. The mere presence of the Thousand Sons warps the nature of the battlefield around them. Time itself is contorted and made sinuous, while the air whips with the eldritch winds of unbound change. Gleaming ranks of rubric marines march in lifeless lockstep, their physical bodies reduced to glittering dust within their animated armor, and their souls little more than possessor ghosts bound to reality by the same sorceries that consumed them. The only sounds they make are the roars of their bolters as they fire punishing volleys of inferno bolts, which detonate with the power of the Imperium. These rubric marines are supported by scarab occult terminators, who deliver hails of armor-piercing rockets and wield wicked Khopesh blades. Their advance, as unstoppable as it is unnaturally coordinated. For every lifeless rubric hay-golem, hundreds of deranged cultists and avian Zangors follow in their wake. Praise, chants, and prayers directed at the God of Change echo across the battlefield, building to a crescendo of excitement as the shrieking zealots close with the enemy. Packs of hideous demons join them, a menagerie of beasts bounding, leaping, and soaring across the battlefield in myriad colors. These unholy throngs mutate and fling searing warp flame even as they surge into battle. Curse tanks and demon engines lend their fire to the fray, their machine spirits twisted and spiteful. So do the cults of the Thousand Sons unleash the magics of chaos upon their foes, and in doing so, give praise to the ineffable Changer of Ways. So do they also serve the will of Magnus the Red, who seeks to gather the forbidden lore that his father, the Emperor, once forbade him. Only then can he earn vindication for himself and all those psychers who offer him their committed service. Chaos Demons. No foe of the Imperium is more malignant nor more terrible than the demons of chaos, the numberless foot soldiers of the ruinous powers. Spawned from the depths of the warp and fashioned from the very essence of the Imperium, they take the form of monsters from mortals' darkest nightmares and cruelest desires. And they will stop at nothing to see reality itself torn apart. Wherever demons set foot within real space, death and despair follow. Their every deed is motivated by the singular desire to further the agenda of their patron Chaos God, and in the process, ensure that those of their rival are violently stymied. On the battlefield, no mercy can be expected from them, for such a concept is utterly alien to beings as strange and inimical as these. Relentless, tireless, they sweep forward to tear their victims apart with hellish weapons and raking talons, or unleash floods of unholy and unclean sorceries. Despite being entities native only to the warp, there are many ways in which demons can pierce the veil of reality. To these malevolent and ever-hungry creatures, mortal souls appear as shining beacons within the Imperium. Those that shine the brightest are psychers, who, to the demons of chaos, are the richest pickings of all. Should such individuals be ignorant of their own power or be caught unawares, the slightest moment of weakness will see demons rush in to consume their souls, or worse still, transform them into a tortured living conduit between the warp and real space. Vessels that ply the Imperium to cross the galactic void are equally vulnerable. Imperial craft employing Geller fields to stave off demonic incursion by surrounding the ship with a bubble of reality. Yet, should these shields flicker for even a moment, they will admit a torrent of malevolent entities, hell-bent on slaughter and possession. For ships that come under full-scale attack, those on board have to fight a near-hopeless battle against evil made manifest. Countless craft are lost this way, their hulks left to drift in the warp or the void for millennia, with all souls lost. Then there are warp storms, vicious tempests of unreality where the skin of real space splits and the stuff of the immaterial spills violently through. Worlds engulfed by, or even unlucky enough to lie close to such storms, are doomed to weather wave upon wave of demonic incursions. The proximity of the Imperium fuels and sustains the Dark God's legions, allowing them to march upon nation after nation, world after world, without losing their tenuous grip upon reality. Demons can even be summoned by those mortals foolish or powerful enough to do so. Wanton slaughter, blood sacrifice, and forbidden rituals all serve to rip open reality. So are the demonic hordes admitted freely through the veil, often at a cost far higher and more hideous than any summoner could have imagined. Each Chaos God's legions manifest physical characteristics, twisted abilities, and overarching drives that embody that deity's essential nature. Khorne's blood legions are relentlessly violent and endlessly wrathful, equipped to spill vital fluids and take skulls with tooth, claw, and blade. The most favored of Khorne's followers charge into the fray on massive juggernauts, brass-fleshed fusions of horned beast and machine. They are led by mighty bloodthirsters, bestial-headed mountains of fury. These daemon lords carry huge axes and cruelly barbed whips, while clad in armor of magic-resistant brass. Tzeentch's scintillating legions are writhing masses of warp flesh, their bodies swathed in empiric energy. The Change God's minions take the form of cackling, sanity-blasting distortions that can wield deadly warp flame and conjure sorcery capable of mutating foes into gibbering spawn or twisting the strands of fate itself. Such is the trickery of the Changer of the Ways, that to cut down one of his horrors is to unleash two more. Led by towering avian terrors known as Lords of Change, Tzeentch's armies are devious, spiteful, and utterly unpredictable. Enemies double over in nausea at the hideous stench of Nurgle's plague legions before they even set eyes on the grandfather's foul offspring. The plague god delegates much authority to the great unclean ones, vast bloated monstrosities that heave themselves across the battlefield, their open sores weeping pus, and their steaming entrails dragging behind them. All of Nurgle's progeny delight in the spreading of unholy contagions, seeking to infest the galaxy with the fungal growths, unending plagues, and fleshy inflorescences that they see as Nurgle's gift to an ungrateful but fortunate galaxy. It is said that no sight amongst the stars is as alluring yet repellent as that of Slaanesh's legions of excess, Daemonets and fiends bound across the battlefield, each a lithe, graceful, and androgynous creature that beguiles and repulses in equal measure. Some Daemonets ride sinuous steeds of Slaanesh, while others are mounted on chariots made from hosts of razor-sharp blades, the slightest sting from which inflicts agonies fit to drive mortals mad. Lightning fast. All of Slaanesh's daemons wield their blades and claws with lethal skill, their sensuous movement serving to distract the foe in the moment before the killing strike. Towering above all of Slaanesh's demonic minions are the Keepers of Secrets, four-armed, androgynous daemon lords that strut proudly before their followers, the most skilled and horribly alluring of all. Since the opening of the Great Rift, the predations of the demons of chaos have become far more widespread, if it were possible, even more gruesome. Demonic legions fall upon world after world, sustained by the pulsing tides of warp energy that spill from the cicatrix maledictum. Amidst the darkness of the Noctis Aeterna and the endless madness of the Imperium Nihilis, the demonic servants of the Chaos Gods wage their unnatural wars with newfound vigor. Never have these entities presented a greater threat to the Emperor's realm, nor to the minds and souls of those who dwell within. Chaos Knights. Cowering monstrosities, the Chaos Knights are twisted and malignant masters of war, wielding devastating heavy weaponry and deadly close combat armaments. These fallen nobles annihilate all before them and set entire worlds ablaze in their nigh unstoppable fury. When a house of knights stride onto the battlefield, tremors ripple through the ground, warriors topple, and the foundations of bastions crack. They are engines of destruction designed for one purpose: war on a gigantic scale. Across the Imperium, the Night Houses are the Emperor's strength incarnate, inspiring boundless courage and embodying the power of the Imperium. When these machines and their noble pilots turn to chaos, however, such feelings are replaced by dread and despair. Toxic fumes billow from corroded exhaust vents as lances of Chaos Knights storm through the ranks of their enemies, scattering and trampling all before them without mercy. Warped and tainted by heinous sorceries and malefic re-engineering, once honorable knight suits become walking nightmares. Evil-looking spikes protrude from pauldrons, skulls of defeated foes hang from heavy chains, and imperial sigils are desecrated and replaced with evil symbols and images of unholy beasts. The fallen nobles who pilot these colossal war machines are prideful and arrogant, all too aware of their immense power. Many will only pledge allegiance to the most successful and legendary Chaos champions. Others retain ancient ties to the dark mechanicum that date back to the horrors of the Age of Darkness, and to this day are pledged to the heretics who rule the chaotic demon forges. Many fallen households make war alone, deeming none but the dark gods themselves worthy of their allegiance. When a household marches out, with their dark pennants snapping in the winds of war, and their diabolical weapons primed for the slaughter, they crush enemy armies and burn entire worlds. Not all Chaos Knights fight as part of a household, however. Some wage their hateful wars alone as Dreadblades, roving from battle to battle, according to whims and desires only they can comprehend. The motivations that make a knight and its noble pilot turn from the Emperor of mankind are manifold. Some belong to households that followed the traitor legions in rebellion during the dread times of the Horus Heresy, while others are simply insane, their minds warped by profane visions or the exploitation of dark entities. Some fall through duplicity or ill fate, their thrones mechanicum tainted with demonic ichor, or their homeworlds consumed by violent warp storms. Whatever the reason behind their turning renegade, these tormented and oath-sworn killers are mighty champions of chaos indeed. From the moment they turn traitor, a noble and their knight suit alike begin a grim descent into irreversible damnation. One taints the other through their neural uplinks, while both suffer the howls and cries of the ancestral ghosts trapped within their throne mechanicum, whipped to madness by their acts of base betrayal. The pilot impresses upon their armor every burst of hatred and bitterness they possess, and in turn, the animal ferocity of a night-suit turned bestial berserker spreads corruption and mutation throughout the fallen noble's body and soul. In the aftermath of the Great Rift's opening, more and more night houses have fallen to chaos. Many have found themselves in close proximity to raw warp energy, twisting and transforming them beyond imagination. Others have been so beset by endless hordes of foes that slaughter itself has become their duty. The need to kill amid so much death consumes them and their throne mechanicum, and their fall to chaos is assured.